Long before the world knew tanks, artillery, or firearms, battlefields were haunted by something simpler and far more primal. Amidst the thundering of shields and the roar of marching legions, Rome unleashed a different kind of soldier. Muscular, dark-coated, and bred for war, it was known as the Canis Pugnax, the Roman war dog. Neither a household pet nor a casual companion, this animal was forged to guard, hunt, fight, and kill. For the legionaries who trusted it with their lives, the Canis Pugnax was not just an animal. It was a living weapon. The breed's story began far from Rome, in the rugged mountains of Epirus, in what is today northwestern Greece and southern Albania. An older bloodline was already legendary, the Molossian hounds. These giant dogs were famed protectors of livestock, villages, and property. Ancient authors like Aristotle and Virgil described them as creatures of enormous power, loyal to their masters but capable of tearing predators and even lions to pieces. For centuries, they guarded shepherds' flocks and farmers' land, earning reputations as both companions and warriors. The Romans, never blind to useful innovations, saw more than a dog. They saw potential. Just as they had adopted Greek gods, Greek philosophy, and Greek architecture, they also imported the Molossian hounds. But the Romans were not content to keep them unchanged. They began crossbreeding these Greek giants with their own native dogs and with the fierce warhounds of barbarian tribes, the Celts, the Germans, the Britons. The result was something new, larger, more agile, more aggressive, but with the Roman obsession for discipline drilled into every bone. Thus, the Canis Pugnax emerged, typically standing around 60 centimeters tall and weighing 40 to 50 kilograms. It was powerful yet mobile enough to keep pace with soldiers. Its black or dark coat made it blend into night operations. Its guttural bark carried intimidation across camps. It had instincts for loyalty, territoriality, and protection sharpened into weapons. In essence, the Romans had engineered a four-legged gladiator, but before the legions marched them into battle, Rome tested their creations elsewhere in the arenas. By the 2nd century BC, public spectacles had escalated from simple duels to massive orchestrations of violence. Dogs like the Canis Pugnax were starved for days, then unleashed against condemned criminals, slaves, or exotic beasts hauled in from across the empire. Lions, bears, wild boars, all fell before them. The crowds roared not just at men but at dogs trained to ignore pain, to attack with unrelenting precision, and to embody cruelty turned into spectacle. Some of these dogs became so infamous that they were given names, praised with ovations, and remembered almost like human gladiators. Yet Rome would soon realize that their true worth did not lie in entertaining a bloodthirsty crowd. It lay in the battlefield, where order, discipline, and terror combined into Rome's greatest weapon. As the Roman Republic grew into empire, it met enemies who also valued war dogs. Celtic tribes in Gaul, Scythian horsemen, Germanic clans, and the Britons all unleashed hounds that hurled themselves at enemy soldiers with suicidal fury. These beasts leapt over shields, clamped down on throats, and fought to the death defending their masters. Roman generals took notice. If the tribes could field dogs as weapons, Rome could create something even deadlier. And so, the Canis Pugnax left the arenas and entered the formations of the legions. Rome refined the breed, further crossing it again with tribal dogs to add speed and ferocity. But the genius of Rome was not just in breeding. It was in doctrine. Tribal dogs attacked blindly, driven by rage. Roman dogs were trained to fight as soldiers. They attacked on command, recognized friend from foe, and held position under stress. They were disciplined enough to die at their master's side rather than flee. Training was rigorous. Puppies were raised among the camps to imprint the scent of Roman soldiers as family. They learned to ignore distractions, battle cries, drums, arrows, even wounds. They drilled daily to recognize commands, follow formation, and hold a line. A war dog that broke ranks was no better than a wild beast, and Rome demanded more. In the field, their uses were countless. The dogs marched with the legions, covering up to 35 kilometers in a day, sometimes carrying small packs strapped to their backs, food, messages, or supplies. At night, they guarded the castra, the fortified camps, pacing along the palisades, alert for the faintest sound or scent. They were Rome's alarm system, barking at intruders long before human sentries knew danger was near. In frontiers like Germania, Thrace, and Dacia, where forests concealed ambushes and terrain made marching dangerous, the Canis Pugnax became vital. They were deployed ahead of columns, sniffing out traps. They were chained near supply depots, ensuring no thief or raider could slip away alive. Some were even used in assaults, released in coordinated charges to sow chaos among enemy lines. Ancient historians rarely gave much space to animals, but glimpses of their impact survive. In 101 BC, at the Battle of Vercellae, the Cimbri unleashed dogs that fought even after their masters were slain. Julius Caesar's campaigns in Gaul and Britain also mention tribes fielding fierce guardian dogs. Rome responded not with dismissal, but with adoption. Reliefs on monuments like the column of Marcus Aurelius show dogs marching with legionaries, carved proof that these animals were not decorative. They were soldiers. To the legionary on campaign, the Canis Pugnax was more than a weapon. It was a comrade. Soldiers fed them, shared tents with them, and sometimes treated them better than slaves. Special rations were set aside for them. Wounded dogs were patched up, and in rare but telling cases, tombstones were raised for them. The bond between man and dog, forged in war, could endure even after retirement, as veterans brought their animals home, symbols of loyalty that had marched every step of the empire's conquest. Despite their fearsome service, the Canis Pugnax never received the recognition of cavalry horses, generals, or siege machines. Official chronicles rarely named them. No military manual described their training in detail. Their story slipped through the cracks of written history. Yet in the memory of the legionary, their presence was undeniable. The silence of the sources does not mean insignificance. Rather, it reflects Rome's tendency to credit victory to men and gods, not beasts. But archaeology and fragments of testimony tell another tale. Dogs that patrolled borders, guarded prisoners, defended supply lines, and died in the mud of foreign lands. Dogs that stood as Rome's most loyal and fearless. Auxiliaries. As centuries passed, warfare changed. Rome declined. And with it, the original Canis Pugnax slowly vanished. Crossbred into other lines or lost entirely, it disappeared as surely as the legions themselves. But it did not vanish without leaving descendants. The Cane Corso and Neapolitan Mastiff, still powerful and imposing breeds, carry in their muscles and temperaments the echoes of those Roman war dogs. Even today, their guarding instincts, deep barks, and imposing builds mirror qualities once bred for the battlefield. So what remains of the Canis Pugnax is more than bones or bloodlines. It is the idea of the dog as soldier, disciplined, loyal, and deadly when commanded. To think of Rome without them is to miss part of what made the legions not just human armies, but combined forces of man, beast, and machine. Does the Canis Pugnax deserve a place of honor beside Rome's legendary warriors? Without question. It guarded the camps, fought in the ranks, and sometimes received the burial of comrades. It was as much a soldier as any legionary. Forgotten in text but immortal in legacy, the Roman war dog deserves to be remembered as one of the fiercest weapons of the empire. So, if you enjoyed uncovering this forgotten chapter of Roman history, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share with others who love the ancient world. And as always, may Mars guide your path. To continue the journey, click the video on screen and explore the lives of the most famous gladiators of Rome.